Are you ready? It's the Roundtable with me, Robert Bannon. Well, welcome to the Roundtable, everybody. You're watching us on Broadway World or over here on the Broadway Podcast Network. And I love people who do podcasts. I love people who do them. Oh, and now, y'all do them better than me because this is a messy little show. But you know, our next guest does not have a messy little show. He's classy. He's classic. It's even in the title of his podcast. He knows all about the movies. He deep dives about the movies. He speaks to the stars of movies, the family of iconic movie stars, and he's really created something pretty magical and special. How did he do it? How do we follow? What can we do to learn more about the classic films? Well, Brandon Davis is here, and he's going to tell us about the next podcast that you hopefully will be obsessed with. Brandon Davis, welcome to the Roundtable.
Hey, Robert. Thanks so much for having me.
I love this is behind the scenes of the voice of the podcast is you.
Thank you. Hopefully the face matches the voice. Sometimes it doesn't always when you meet people.
It does. And your background is exactly what, if you're listening to us. See, that's why I'm not good at podcasts, because I already am talking about what I can see. But look, there's classic films behind you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I had to have the right motif and the right just the right whole trajectory behind me here. So
Well, Brandon, where in the universe are you?
I am in Springfield, Illinois. So the capital city of Illinois, about halfway, well, right smack dab in the middle of the state, halfway between Chicago and St. Louis.
Okay, so you meet me in St. Louis, Brandon. That's so. How did the idea? You're in Springfield. I'm sure you don't make a living being a podcaster.
I do not know.
I wish I did. I wish I had $1 billion podcast deal.
Me too.
So when did the idea come for you to get behind the mic?
Yeah, so I've always been a film fan, and in my probably like junior high days, I discovered I loved classic film, which was unusual for a 12, 13-year-old boy, but that's kind of the impetus, and I just became fascinated not just with the movies themselves, but with how they were made, the whole culture of Hollywood in the 1930s, 40s, 50s. So I was one of those film nerds that just watched the documentaries that were on the DVDs too, and got to learn about all of the personalities, all of the different people, and became fascinated. And it became kind of my passion. And so it was great as I got older, getting to meet people who also loved film. And I had a friend in college who was really into, the new thing, which was blogging in the mid-aughts. And so he started a blog called the Front Row Movie Reviews. And he and I blogged for a little bit. Then, of course, life happens. You leave college, you go your separate ways. And then he moves back to the area, which is Springfield. I lived about a half hour north at the time, and he got married. I was in his wedding. We reconnected. And about a month after that, he and a couple friends that he had met started a podcast called the Front Row Network, the Front Row Movie Reviews, actually. And they asked me about a month into it to do a show on classic film. And so that's really how it started. I mean, it was just something to sort of vent our passions and something to sort of create an outlet for. And that's really how it got started. I did a show monthly, and that was about it. And now I do 2 shows a week usually. So it really just started out as kind of just a fun side project. And then once the pandemic hit in 2020, I've got to say, that's when the show really took off, because I started actually interviewing people. I became more of the show up to that point was really just me and friends chatting about movies. But then I shifted my gears toward, half of the time interviewing people. And I found during a pandemic, when people are sitting at home doing nothing, they're more willing to sit down and talk to you. So once I got one person, it just snowballed. And then I developed more and more of I guess an old-fashioned term, Rolodex, but yeah, I did. And so that's kind of how it got started. And the show's kind of just taken off since then.
Isn't that funny? I'm sure people ask you all the time, how do you get your guests, and how does that happen? So what is your trick? Do you have, I know you have the role. I mean, that's the podcast. Is it true for you? Let me say it this way. Is it true for you that one good interview and one good connection, usually it's like a spider web. It kind of goes in its own way, and then people have a good time on your show, and then other people want to come.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I was inspired by my friend Craig, who hosts another show here on the network called Beyond the Mouse, and it's a Disney related podcast. And they started just reaching out during the pandemic to people within, the Disney world, and they had success with it. And I thought, well, let me see what I can do. And I thought, well, my show, it's hard because I talk about movies from the 30s, 40s, and 50s. So a lot of those people aren't around anymore. So I had an idea. I thought, well, I see a lot of these people on documentaries who are historians or relatives or descendants of these people. And so the first person who I reached out to was Patricia Ward Kelly, Gene Kelly's widow. And I knew that she ran social media called Gene Kelly The Legacy. I knew she had a website. So I went on the website and saw that there was an email address. So I just emailed, I sent her a couple of past episodes I had done. I probably got an email back less than a day later saying she'd be willing to do it. So I interviewed Patricia. It was an incredible like hour and a half conversation just about all things Gene. And that was really was got the ball rolling because then I could use her as sort of a springboard. And then I talked to Todd Fisher, the son of Debbie Reynolds, brother of Carrie Fisher. I talked to Eddie Muller, the host of Noir Alley on TCM. And so that was sort of within my first 3 months of doing interviews. I talked to Kate Luckenbill, who is the granddaughter of Lucy and Desi. And so it really became, I kind of have had kind of this twofold interview thing where I talk to relatives and descendants of people, and then I talk to hosts. I've interviewed all 5 Turner Classic Movies hosts, and I've developed kind of a relationship with that network, which has been wonderful. And yeah, it just sort of springboarded from there. And then I've been able to attend the TCM Film Festival in LA for the last 3 years. And it's been incredible. I never dreamed that something I just said yes to a friend just to do as kind of a fun side project would turn into this.
Well, and you talk about Gene Kelly, and he's over your shoulder as we speak.
Yeah.
Right? It is what an amazing story and how much fun.
Mhm.
You talked to Todd Fisher.
I did. I did. And it was more him talking to me, I'll say, because
Okay.
it was great because he was sitting in his studio in Las Vegas and he was surrounded by, his mother was a memorabilia collector. And so he was sitting literally next to a pair of the ruby slippers and R2D2 on both sides of him. It felt almost like QVC at times because he would just bring stuff out and show me. And yeah, that was incredible. That was a really fun interview. And I think that was the second one I did.
So that is available. It's still the old interviews. We could deep dive into all of your interviews. If we tell us the best place, where should we follow
Yeah,
you, find
Yeah,
your?
so my podcast is mainly an audio podcast just because I do have a full-time job and it's hard to take care of audio and video editing and everything. I did during the pandemic when there was more time, I had a guy who was helping me video edit. So you can find a few of those on YouTube, but mainly I'm anywhere you get your podcast. So you just search Front Row Classics and I'm on Apple, I'm on Spotify, I'm on Amazon Music, I'm on all of those different outlets. You can find me on Audible even. Just find it that way, and then you can search YouTube Front Row Classics and find a few things. A couple of my interviews with Patricia Kelly are on there. I know my interview with Lucy Arnaz is on there. I think my interview with Mary Badham, who played Scout in To Kill a Mockingbird, is on there. So yeah, there's a few that you can get.
And you have literally hundreds. I mean, if you're and you told me once that you range the gamut. So you do go up to more like I know you just did an episode on Pretty Woman. Like there are some more modern. I mean, that shows my age that I think
Yeah.
Pretty Woman is
Well, Well,
modern.
well, no, it's funny. It was the first time I've done a movie. Well, that movie's 1990, so it's the most recent movie I've done. I've done quite a few from the 80s, but I have a friend who I've met through the podcast. Her name's April Clemmer, and she is a film historian and she's a stylist, a fashion expert. She lives out in LA, and we connected at the TCM Fest when I was out in LA. And she said, "Would you ever consider doing Pretty Woman?" I just rewatched it, and there's a lot of classic film connections in Pretty Woman, and the style of it. And I said, sure. I said, as long as it's relevant to the theme of my show. And so, yeah, we did. And yeah, it's fun. So, and the word classic doesn't relegate itself to a certain time period. Classic, you can have instant classics that come out and be, considered a classic that year it comes out. So it just depends. It doesn't always have to be the test of time, but most of the time that's the way it occurs. But yeah, so no, my films run the gamut. I've done the silent era all the way through now, Pretty Woman in 1990.
I love it. I love that so much. So how do you do your research? What is your way of deep diving into these films? Do you just and how often do you watch a movie?
Well, okay, so I'm getting older now, but I pride myself on I have a pretty good memory, and I have a pretty good Rolodex in my brain of facts that I keep that just they're like they just attach themselves, and so they just kind of stick. So for like a lot of the core movies that I know, whether it's something like Singing in the Rain or whether it's something like All About Eve or Casablanca or something like that, I'm pretty well versed just because I've read so much about them over the years. But if it's a movie I'm not too familiar with, if I know I'm going to be doing an episode on it, I always watch the movie twice before I do it, because I want to get it in my head, and then I will. If there's a documentary on YouTube, if there's a documentary on streaming about it or something about the star, I'll try and find it. You can't always do that depending on the time of year and how busy I am, but that's usually my goal, to try and at least, learn a little bit about it, not just rely on something like Wikipedia, which wouldn't be
Right.
always true. But I'll go to IMDb and try and figure out. IMDb is not always reliable either, but I'll try and get as many different sources as I can about the movie before I go and do an episode on it.
Are you someone who sits down and writes questions, or do you just follow facts? Is it a conversation? Like, what do you consider your hosting style?
Well, it's different for each episode, but for just when I'm talking with a guest or one of my friends about a movie, I just kind of have a template that I follow, basically, that I go through, and so that's pretty simple. I usually don't have to have too many. If there's like a specific fact or two, I'll jot it down and have it by me before I go ahead and do the episode. For interviews, when I first started, I literally like wrote out every question I was going to ask. But then I interviewed Ben Mankiewicz for TCM about, I want to say, for the first time about like 3.5 years ago. And I asked him about that. And he said what he does for an interview, he just keeps bullet points about different topics and different things that he wants to ask the guest. And the reason he does that is because then he has a guide of what he knows he wants to talk to them about. But if the guest takes the conversation somewhere else, you're not glued to what the next question is you're going to ask, and you can follow them down the path and then bring them back to whatever you're going to do. So it allows it to be a little more natural that way. And so I found the way that my listeners like it and the way that I like it is I like it to be more of a natural conversation. So I go in knowing what I want to talk about and what I want to cover, but if the guest decides to get off it on a different exit on the highway, I'll follow them off that exit and then try to get them back on the interstate at some point.
Come back around. That's funny. Before I ever did an interview, I had done an interview. Someone had interviewed me about music, and they had asked me about a song that I wrote, but I didn't write it. So I learned this lesson very early on. They said, what was your family's reaction when you wrote the song? And I said, I didn't write the song. My friends wrote the song. And the follow-up question was, how long did it take you to write the song? And I realized, like, sometimes that
Oh yeah.
concrete following, sometimes you got to just be able to pivot and have a natural conversation. And that's what you do so well. I loved your interview with Lorna Luft. After we talked about it on Instagram, I went and listened to it because I'm obsessed with Judy Garland.
Oh, well, absolutely. Yeah, she was, yeah, pivotal in my classic film obsession when I was a kid. Like everybody, I loved The Wizard of Oz. But then when I saw Meet Me in St. Louis, I thought, oh, this woman was insanely talented. And then I wanted to watch everything that she ever did. But yeah, Lorna was someone I tried to get on for a long time. But then I've become friends with the other guest who was on that podcast, James Duke Mason, who is the grandson of James Mason, and he put me in touch with her, and we came up with the idea of having the two of them on to talk about A Star Is Born. And so yeah, I had a lot of fun, and she was a great guest. She's one of those guests where you can just give her one question and then just let her go for 5 to 10 minutes.
She's going to go. And
Mhm.
she has a lot of history and knowledge about, obviously, about her mom, but about the business in general.
Oh yeah.
I loved the Star is Born podcast episode because, when I was growing up, I was a nerdy kid. And
Mhm.
I watched the Streisand version first
Oh
because
sure.
I was obsessed with Babs. And
Yeah.
then I went back and watched the Judy Garland version. And I think that those kind of conversations about how are so much fun, and that's what you do so well, is you give us the stories behind the stories, literally, and
Oh
that's
yeah. Because
what's
that enriches the movie. I feel like when you know, and not all the salacious gossip, but when you know sort of the struggles it took to get a movie on the screen or any sort of fun anecdotes that happen, that enriches the movie that you're watching because it makes it layered and it makes you able to watch it time and time again.
so. Do you have like a movie routine? Do you have a snack go to? Do you have a spot in your house? Do you go to the movies, or is this
Oh,
is
I love the movie theater. I
okay?
love the movie theater. But no, I mean, I'm pretty simple. I'll just, I grab, I'm not really popcorn. I can take or leave. I'm more of a candy person. I've got a sweet tooth, so my my go-to movie candy is Bunch of Crunch. I always have to grab that when I'm at the movies. But yeah, I'm a soda and candy person when I'm at the movies. But and my house is pretty simple. It's just my living room, and I like to lay back on the couch and watch a nice Blu-ray or 4K, the best quality possible. But yeah, no, I love going to the movie theaters. I still do.
Do you? And I was going to ask, do you go to current movies? Like, what
Oh,
was the last
yeah.
movie you saw?
The last movie I went and saw was actually it was Superman. It was yeah, 2 weeks ago. Yeah, I went to the Amazon Prime early showing of it. My a friend of mine and his girlfriend were going, so I went with them, and yeah, that was a lot of fun. But I enjoy modern movies as well. I love movies of all decades, but my only thing that I really miss today is I miss the variety. We don't get sort of the full menu of movies in movie theaters anymore, unless it's like a big event movie or has a big star attached to it. It's not really going to come to theaters, or at least theaters, for very long, especially here in the Midwest.
Absolutely. And I've learned that here in Detroit. And I
Mhm,
have learned that different than New York City, where I'm from. And I've also had a lot of conversations with people who have new movies. And it feels
mhm.
the business of movies has changed so much because you may get a release in a couple theaters and then a week later it's on demand. And the
Yeah.
selling of movies and the streaming of
Mhm.
movies is so different. What do you think about that? I know I'm a theater fan too. And my ADD is bad at home. I need to sit in that seat in the dark. I miss
Yeah,
movies.
yeah, I do. I love theater too. So I love going. The great thing about living here in Springfield where I do is we have a very rich arts community with about three or four local community theaters around here that's always has something going on. So I can go get my live theater fix when I need to as well. But no, I just yeah, I'm grateful for streaming, especially during something like the pandemic. When we were all at home just begging for things to do and things to watch. It's so nice to have all of that at your fingertips. I think the irony is we have so much at our fingertips right now. We have more access to movies than anyone has ever had ever before, and yet we like to stay in our own little niche more than we ever have. So if you're into sci-fi, if you're into horror, if you're into superhero stuff, you pretty much stay in that lane and you don't veer into other territories. Whereas, in the 90s, I remember going to movies of all genres, all kinds. I was kind of well versed in all of it. So it's interesting. Even though we have more available to us than ever, we like to stay with what we know.
What I find fascinating about what you do is, like, we were just talking about Lorna Luft. I know you had her daughter on as well,
I did.
and I know that you have a lot of family. And I think that besides from the salacious gossip, some people talk about the gossip of it all. You talk about
Yeah.
the film, but inherently, you then talk about the person and the life behind the art. And I think that is such a fascinating thing. Have you seen some classic movie stars in a different way after you've spoken to their family members?
I think so. I mean, a lot of times I really dig in and do my research before I speak to them, so I know kind of what their feelings are about their family members or how they feel about certain questions about their family members. So I like to go in very respectful in that way. I'm not a gotcha interviewer. I make my intention very clear when I have them on. I don't want to make a mockery or turn it into a circus. I really just want to celebrate their family members. So, but no, it is interesting when you come on. I think more than anything, even more than their answers, just getting to experience them and seeing how they are as a human being says a lot about how they were raised and who the people who raised them were. Because it just shows you the kind of human beings that you set out into the world. My in my top 5 interviews that I've done is Lucy Arnaz. She is just a firecracker. She is a powerhouse, and you could just tell she was a product of 2 incredible human beings who, lived very interesting lives. And she has, like everybody, with if your parents are famous or not, there's going to be baggage, and there's going to be um, there's going to be regrets, there's going to be triumphs, there's going to be everything. And she is honest and brings that all into the table with incredible humor and warmth and wit. And also, my goal when I talk to Lucy Arnaz also is this is a woman who has had an amazing career all on her own. So the first 40 minutes of that hour and a half I spent just talking about her before we even got into her parents. And I know that she appreciated that. So you've got to remember that you're speaking to an actual individual with their own life as well as being attached to the iconic figures as
Yes.
well.
Absolutely. I love that. And I love that you get the people that don't want to do my show. I want Lucy Arnaz. I want Lorna. So anyway, besides, it's not about me, Brandon. So
That's all
back
right.
to you. When you talk about the community that you have built, it must be so much fun to have people who listen to every episode, who reach out to you on social media, who
Mhm.
you've created your own community of classic movie lovers.
Oh, yeah. It's amazing. I mean, when I started, I had no idea the kind of people who would listen. And I really didn't have a good gauge of it until about 5 years into it. Like I said, 2020, because I really had time to sit down. And I had a Facebook page before that, and I had a couple of things. But then once the pandemic started, I got onto Instagram, I got onto Twitter. And, in the last year, I've gotten onto Blue Sky. And so I've really gotten a gauge. And what's interesting is each social media platform kind of has a different crowd, a different demographic almost of people. And then I get emails, I get messages, and so I get feedback from people who are teenagers all the way through 70, 80 years old. I mean, it really is amazing. And when you do a classic film podcast, you think, okay, the people who are going to listen are going to be of a certain age, they're going to be a little bit older. But I was amazed. I was like, if I knew all these people my age like these movies when I was growing up, it would have made me feel less alone. It really would have. And that is what warmed my heart so much. But it really is remarkable. And I get so many well-meaning feedback too, so much well-meaning feedback too, because people are suggesting movies all the time, they're asking me to do more things, and it's like, and I respond and I said, if this was my full-time job and I were getting paid, I would love to do that, maybe someday. but but right now, I can kind of do what I do, and maybe one day I'll be able to do more. But no, it's incredible when well, every once in a while I'll just get the odd comment from someone saying, your podcast kept me company while I was a caretaker for my parent or for my, sick child or whatever. And that's something I never, ever would have imagined that me just sitting around talking about movies would have done.
Well, that's the magic of what you do, and that's so beautiful. I love that so much. It's if you're going on Instagram, it's FRN Classics Podcast Pod,
Mhm.
FRN Classics Pod. If you're listening
Yeah.
to us, links will all be below, and everything will be below in the bio and description, so you could follow as well as find a way to listen to them all. Are you a podcast listener? Do you listen to other people's? You do.
I am. That was the only reason why I decided to do it, was because I started listening to podcasts. I have really, I love classic film, but I also have really other odd tastes. I'm a big Survivor fan, so I
Okay.
listen. So I started listening to a lot of Survivor podcasts in the early days of podcasts. I grew up watching soap operas, so I listened to some soap opera podcasts. I love history, so I listen to a lot of history related stuff. And so what I found was podcasts would cover sort of those niche interests that a lot of other media outlets really don't. And so when I started the classic film podcast, I took inspiration of what I liked from a lot of those other podcasts. So yeah, I do. I don't always get to listen just depending on the the week or how busy I am, but I have a nice 20-minute commute to work every morning and back, so I can listen to a nice half of a 40-minute podcast on the way to, and the rest on the way back. So yeah, it's a podcast is always usually accompanying me when I'm in the car on a long drive.
I love that. And I love that it builds community and it teaches us things that we may never have known before. And I think that what you said about a niche community is what's, because if you, like you said, Survivor, soap operas, people out here, if it's
Yeah.
Broadway, if it's musicals, if it's classic movies, if you love that, you can find your community and find more information about all of that. Okay, I have a couple quick questions for you,
Yeah.
Brandon. Controversial.
Okay.
Okay. Do you have a favorite musical movie?
Oh, wow. So, I mean, well, right behind me is Singing in the Rain. I think that is a perfect movie, just period, not just movie musical. Um, but it's interesting. I was talking with a friend about this the other day. I think the one that I watch even more than Singing in the Rain is The Bandwagon. I
Oh,
love The Bandwagon so much. I think probably it's because of my love of theater. If you're a theater person, you fully understand The Bandwagon, and you've had disastrous productions in your life like that before. And I think that it's some of Fred Astaire's best work. And I think that is a movie I can watch over and over again, and it just makes me smile. So it's always kind of twofold. It's usually Singing in the Rain and The Bandwagon, because one covers my love of movies and the other covers my love of theater.
I love that. Do you have a favorite actor or actress that is their body of work? Is there someone who you just have seen their films and say this is it?
I am a huge Betty Davis fan. I just in terms of that era. I mean, but I love Barbara Stanwyck. I love Katharine Hepburn. I love so many Judy Garland, as I mentioned. But when I look at the amount of work that Betty Davis did, and how, during her heyday, she had that very over the top melodramatic acting style. But then as she aged and she got into All About Eve, she took that style and she made it. She adjusted to the times, but she was always Betty Davis still, and she could play any kind of part. She could play vulnerable, but she could also play just a battle axe, and she could play so many different wide-ranging roles. Her body of work just stuns me. I'm such a Betty Davis fan. Even if the movie stinks, I can always watch her.
I remember going to college in film class and watching All About Eve and thinking, what in the world am I watching? And what a classic. I mean, she's one of
She's
the
incredible.
incredible. So if you were on a deserted island with a portable DVD player and one DVD, what are you taking with you?
Oh man. Well, I couldn't go wrong with either of the two that I mentioned, Singing in the Rain or the Bandwagon. But a movie that makes me smile, and it's a little, well, it's over 50 years old, but it's from 1972. But you mentioned Streisand earlier. What's Up, Doc is a movie I can watch over and over and over again, and it always makes me smile. It always makes me laugh. I love Peter Bogdanovich's work. Um, you got Streisand has never been more gorgeous than she was in that
Mhm.
movie. Ryan O'Neal is so funny. Madeline Kahn steals it. She was just a genius. But that movie makes, I don't care how many times I see it, it just makes me laugh over and over. And it harkens back to the screwball comedies of the 30s. So it's a nice sort of a middle ground for me. But that's a movie I can watch over and over again. And that just popped into my head when you said it.
That takes me back to renting it in New Jersey when I was a kid. My goal as a kid, me and my brother, our love of movies, where we would pick an actor and we would rent every movie that they did. I mean, that we were nerdy at that age. They were not
Yeah.
as sophisticated as your taste. I mean, ours might have been Eddie Murphy movies, Good, Bad, and Ugly, or
Oh,
Barbara
sure.
Streisand movies, or etc. So I love the love that you have for the films is transcends to the podcast, and then we can all love it too because we all love the films and we get to watch it through you, and that's the joy of your
Yeah.
show.
Yeah. Well, and I don't always talk about some of the greatest movies. This summer, I actually just did an episode on Valley of the Dolls, but I talked about how it's okay to enjoy trash also.
Mhm.
But I've talked about Batman from 1966, which is just a ton of fun, and I've talked about a couple other guilty pleasure films over the years. So it's you can stay classy only for so long, but every once in a while you just crave a little bit of. schlock, I'll say.
I'm gonna have to go watch Valley of the. My mom was a hairdresser from New Jersey, and I was a little gay. I loved Valley of the Sun. I could sing the song right now. I love what you do, and I'm really excited that we found each other magically. Thank you for supporting my show. I support your show right back.
Absolutely.
I love the class. If you want a classy show about real facts with editing and good sound, and not like this mess, Brandon Davis has got you covered. He's got you covered. There's hundreds of episodes you can catch up with right now. So
Yeah.
Go to Instagram, go to wherever you're listening right now. If you're on Apple or Spotify or wherever you listen to a podcast, make sure you check out the Front Row Classics podcast. Do we have a upcoming show that you can tease us about in the next week or so, or two, or whatever?
Well, actually, later today I'll be posting an episode that I did with an author who I've gotten to know. Her name is Morgan Matson. She writes a lot of young adult fiction, but she's also into classic film. And she and I just did an episode on A Guy Named Joe from 1943 with Spencer Tracy and Irene Dunn. So that's good. But I recently, in August, so coming up later next month, you'll have a conversation that I had with Maria Cooper Janis, the daughter of Gary Cooper, and then also Anita Swift, who was the granddaughter of John Wayne. So some really interesting conversations coming out in August coming up. And then actually after I guess an exclusive, after I get off of here with you in about an hour, I'm going to be chatting with Mario Cantone about his stint hosting Summer Under the Stars on TCM next month. So that'll be a lot of fun. I've talked to Mario before, but it'll be fun to talk to him again.
Oh my goodness, he's going to give you good conversation.
Oh, I don't have to say. All I have to say is say hi, and then my half hour is covered.
So coming up, I'll get so many good shows and so many deep dives coming up.
And let me just say also, I didn't mention it before, but about 2019, the podcast was. I produce the show and everything myself, but I found a nice podcasting partner in NPR Illinois, here in Springfield, who is through the University of Illinois at Springfield. And just with everything in the news and stuff, I just want to just tell everyone how imperative public media is and how important it is, because commercial media can only give you so much, and it doesn't give you more of the arts kind of coverage that we crave, those of us who love the arts. So definitely always support your public media. I definitely would not be where I am today without the support of NPR Illinois as well. So yeah, public media is imperative for American culture.
Absolutely. Shout out to all the NPR, shout out to the PBS stations around the country, shout out to everything that is public broadcasting. Because we were raised on public broadcasting, and it adds art and culture to the world, and we are so grateful for that. So I stand with you in that, Brandon. 110%. I'm a Muppet freak.
Yes.
So Sesame Street was it.
And and Lamb Chop. I just saw you interviewed Lamb Chop.
And Lamb Chop. Of course. So we're really excited to talk to you. My show is your show anytime. Please come back, and anything we can ever do here, we love what you're doing over there.
I would love to. Thank you so much. This has been so fun.
Thank you. So much fun. Everybody, Brandon Davis and the Front Row Classic podcast is out. You need to go listen to it, stream it wherever you listen to your podcast. You have 300 something episodes to catch up on. So get started right now.
You do.
Let's go. Thank you so much. Break legs with all the rest of the interviews today.
Thank you.